to another episode of the Niche Pursuits podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Hawes from nichepursuits.com. And before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to tell you a little bit about Ezoic. Ezoic is an ad platform that I have been using on my niche site project for site, and I've been very happy with it. Ezoic is a Google award-winning technology that everyone from niche website owners to major brands use to grow and monetize their websites. Ezoic is also a Google certified publishing partner. The platform leverages artificial intelligence to learn from website visitors with the goal of providing more personalized experiences that will improve on-page experiences, which is session length, while also optimizing revenue and monetization on a per visitor basis. The Ezoic platform features everything from intelligent website analytics to advanced automated visitor segmentation tools that allow publishers to improve visitor experiences and increase overall website revenue. Overall, there really are some big benefits to using Ezoic. It's more than just an ad platform, but it truly is a platform that allows publishers to implement sophisticated ad operations and monetization practices on their websites using advanced artificial intelligence. This allows publishers to manage as much or as little as they want. You simply drag and drop ad placeholders, and Ezoic will help automatically test thousands of ad partners, ad locations, ad types, and control ad density. This means Ezoic optimizes revenue and engagement for each unique visitor, maximizing the revenue publishers earn. If you want to go and check out Ezoic, you can go to nichepursuits.com/Ezoic. Again, that's nichepursuits.com/Ezoic. Hey everyone, Spencer Hawes here with nichepursuits.com, and welcome back to another episode of the Niche Pursuits podcast. Today I'm excited to have a guest interview. Today I'm talking with Ron Stefanski from OneHourProfessor.com. Now, Ron recently came on to nichepursuits.com and wrote a guest post, shared a success story from one of his sites, and explained everything that was working really, really well for that particular site. And so I wanted to have him on the podcast so that we could dive a little bit deeper and have a conversation about that site. So Ron is somebody that has worked professionally in marketing and online marketing and doing other things, but is currently a professor. He actually teaches school, and he's kept that job. He can explain why, but he certainly is earning a lot more from his websites now than he is as a professor. And so his website is OneHourProfessor.com. He shares his income reports there and some other things that are working well. What I love about what Ron shares is not only that he talks about a site that is making $18,000 a month, which is a huge sum of money for one website, but he shares the exact things that help the site take off. One of those is informational databases, and again, he'll explain what that is, his keyword research strategies for answering questions, and then he dives into a couple of link building strategies that have worked well for him. And then we talk about his overall business structure, how he has a full-time virtual assistant, editor, writers, how much content he has on his sites, and so much more. So you can get all the details that Ron has to share, what's working really well for his site. I do want to say that even though Ron doesn't share the URL of the site that's making $18,000 a month here on the podcast, he has shared that with me privately. And so I did have a chance to look at the website that's earning the money that he claims. I've been able to look at the stats with SEMrush and see, his screenshots and income verification. And I can tell you that it is a legit site. I can see that it's getting a ton of traffic. It does rank really, really well in Google. And so there's no reason to believe that anything he's sharing is not 100% true and accurate. So I just wanted to let you know that even though his site isn't shared publicly, I've been able to verify that privately. And so I'm comfortable having him on the interview and let you know that these strategies are working. So having said that, I hope that you are able to enjoy the interview with Ron and able to take away some great strategies that you can apply to your own websites. Thanks a lot. Welcome to the Niche Pursuits podcast.
Hey, Spencer. Thanks so much for having me. It's a real pleasure. I've been following you for a long time, so really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the podcast and being able to share your success story here. For those listeners that may recognize your name, you just did a guest post. Well, we published it this week. Of course, when they're listening, it'll been, maybe a month ago or something like that, and shared your story. And so I wanted to have you on the podcast to dive a little bit deeper into what's working well with your niche sites and, building a business online. But before we dive into that specifically, I want to get a little bit of your background so people know where you're coming from, that sort of thing. So can you just give us an idea of your work and business experience previous to building websites?
Yeah, and if people want to see the full explanation of everything, they can jump into the blog post there. But basically, to sum it up, I was in sales. I became an internet marketing coordinator at a small company. It was a supplement company. And I was basically working there to kind of learn internet marketing. I should say when I was in sales, I actually got laid off in sales. And then I basically kind of putzed around with the website and everything. And it was essentially a failure, but it kind of got me interested in it. So then I went to the supplement company. I worked there for a little bit. Then I went to an agency, worked at just various marketing positions. Eventually I ended up being like a corporate level digital marketing manager, which was from a career standpoint pretty high. I guess I could have been a director of marketing and then a CMO. I was 2 steps away from that. And it just, for the most part I was there. It was going fine. The pay was good. Coworkers were fine. I didn't love the job, but I could stand the job. But I got pretty tired of it and had been kind of putzing around on, websites on the side. And basically when I was working at one of the jobs, I just really wanted to start one of these websites that I essentially wouldn't give up on, I guess, because, I tried and I'm sure I know you did this in the past where you did little niche websites where it was like 10, 15, 20 pages. I did a few of those, had quite a few failures. And I was like, I'm going to create what I call an authority site, which is just basically more pages, more information.
Right.
So I started that and, it really is kind of the anchor of the online business now. And now I have 7 different total websites. I've got a team that I work with. I got 1 full-time VA. I've got, I'm trying to think of how many writers I have right now, 4 part-time writers and 1 part-time editor. So basically just focus on, certain projects at a time, get the content in, get it built up, hire writers if need, pass them through the editor, and things have been going pretty well for it's been about 5 years here. So.
Awesome. Yeah. And we're going to dive, of course, into your websites and what's working really well. But your website is onehourprofessor.com. And so you are still teaching as a professor. Can you tell us how you got involved in doing that and kind of what your day-to-day is like doing that currently?
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. So I've been a college professor now for, I think it's been going on 9 years or so. I got my MBA. And when I got my MBA, I ended up trying to find an online adjunct position because it was, it's work from home. The pay's decent. It's not great, but it's decent. And it was one of those things where it was like, well, I could probably jump into this and, give it a shot. And I've really stuck with it over the years. I've changed to quite a few different schools. Currently, there's 3 different colleges that I teach at. And it is all online adjunct. They've given me the opportunity to teach in person, but I don't want to because I hate commuting very, very much so. So that was like my moment of freedom when I didn't have to commute anymore, So I still teach at 3 different schools. For the most part, if anyone has an MBA, I'm not going to say it's easy to get into, but once you get into it, it's actually a pretty sweet gig. It's not very overwhelming. Usually day to day, I don't do too much, quite frankly, because a lot of it's all online. So I basically will answer discussion boards and, emails. And then the only day that kind of sucks is Monday. That's my grading day. So that's the day where it's like, I still hate Mondays, even though I work for myself, because I got to do all the grading. And that just takes, it takes time and there's a lot of work that goes into that. So Mondays are basically the day that are kind of eaten up, but for the amount that I make with it and everything, it makes it worth it, to spend 1 day a week, really, really focus on. And then other days I spend really, 10, 15 minutes per day or so, maybe a little longer some days, but that's pretty easy. So just kind of a side thing. When I quit my job and started my own online thing and really was struggling, I was teaching on the side to keep the money coming in, and now it pays for my mortgage. And I'm like, well, it's nice to always have that safety net just in case. So
yeah, absolutely. So you're still doing that. And then of course, building the sites on the side, which at this point are, doing quite well. And so, in fact, can you share with people how well your sites overall are doing, just to give people a sense of how successful they've been for you?
Yeah. So one thing I will say, so one of the things that I think is unique to me, and this was inspired by Pat Flynn, of course, I'm sure like many people have seen, but I've actually done the whole income report thing since I started. And I started, my first one was in September 2014, and I've done one every month since then. They've obviously changed and everything, but right now, this last month, and this is why I can give such detailed numbers, last month revenue was $25,039.51. Expenses were $4,801.20, and the net income was just over $20,000 for the month. The website that I talk about in the blog post and what I really focused on within that makes about 18,000 of that. So that is definitely the lion's share of it. But the other ones are growing, and, it takes time to get those to grow. So yeah, as of right now, I'm doing really well. And like I said, I'm totally transparent about my income, expenses, challenges, all that kind of stuff. So.
Right. And so you did share, obviously we can calculate sort of the expenses there. You gave us the revenue and the net income there. And you did mention that you've got like 3 writers and an editor. Can you maybe just review your staff, who you're using, and your expenses there a little bit?
Yeah. So with staff right now, like I said, I have one full-time virtual assistant. She is from the Philippines. She's really good. I like her a lot. She's not a superhero VA, so to speak, because I know some people talk about that where they can do everything. But she does a lot of the mundane tasks that I used to do that just take, 5, 10, 15 minutes. Or if I need something research, she'll do that. Or if I need bulk changes on one of my websites and we can't do it programmatically, she'll handle that kind of stuff. And she does all like the posting the blogs and after they're edited and everything. I have a whole workflow behind it, but she's there. I pay her about $160 a week, and that is full time. And she's in the Philippines, so it is on the cheaper side, but she's in one of those like a province in the Philippines where it's not all that expensive either. Mm-hmm. And I take care of her. I've given her raises. There's been bonuses. There's been things I've done along the way. So she likes me. I think she's great. So that's my full timer, and then I've got 3 part-time writers. Usually I'll be getting, because I know everyone will always ask this, where do you get them? Upwork is always the place where I go to get them. It's not, no secret there. I think everyone's heard that before, but I usually go to Upwork, and I'll test people out. I like to pay people by 100 words. So basically it's by word, but I always ask for a quote for by 100 words. And I do that because, I always give people templates. I'll give my writers templates, and I'll say, this is kind of what we're thinking. This is kind of the word count we're thinking. But after I trust them, I say, I want you to write as much as needed, right? Or as little as needed. I don't want you to overdo it. I don't want you to underdo it. I want you to write the amount that fully covers this topic. So I prefer by word instead of just, a fixed rate per article, stuff like that. So for me, that's been successful.
What sort of average rate would you say you're paying your authors then?
Usually, in the past, I got as low as it's pretty crazy. In the past, I got like 50 cents per 100 words. I wouldn't recommend that. Now that I've got, that's like, and it was actually, the website's actually doing okay. It wasn't great content, but it was okay. But like for the most part, I'm usually between like $2 to $3 per 100 words. So 20 to 30 bucks per 1,000 word article, which I think is on the cheaper end. But
yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. The reason why I think it works for me is because I'm very detail oriented with my templates. Mm-hmm. So I actually would much rather get a writer that's not very experienced, that doesn't have what I call, bad habits, mm-hmm. and kind of train them into what I want. Like the virtual assistant I have, she didn't have a lot of the skills that she has now. So I prefer to get someone at the ground level when they don't have a ton of experience, really train them up, get them into a place to where it's really good. And then I also have that editor. And the editor saves me a lot because she'll go in there and make sure that the content is good, make sure, the context makes sense. They're not just writing a bunch of gibberish that isn't helpful. She really focuses on that stuff. So between the two, they submit something pretty good, and then my editor looks over it. And quite frankly, there's been quite a few times when I'm not even reviewing articles. What I usually do now is I'll just kind of spot check, because obviously I have so many websites.
Right.
It would be hard to read over all of them. So I'll usually spot check here and there, once or twice a week, and just make sure everything's up on the up and up. And usually it has been, and then, come back a few weeks later and check on it. So
does your editor do the formatting primarily as well
No. So so what we do, because the editor is more expensive, right? Mm-hmm. So the editor is more expensive than my virtual assistant. So what I basically have is I have an editor. I can't even remember what I pay her an hour. I think it's like $20 an hour. It's not even crazy expensive, but right. I think it's something like that. And she'll basically go in. What happens is the writers will take it. It's all done in Google Docs. So the writers will come in. They'll write the content. Well, I should say this. Let me step back. I usually do the keyword research myself.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you do the same, but because that's that's a vital part of the whole thing. So I'll do the keyword research myself. I'll put it in a spreadsheet. I'll say, hey, writers, I'll have one or two, and say, pick whatever topic you want this week, or, however many articles they're writing, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Pick however many you want, and then write about it. They'll write about it. They'll put it into a folder, and then the editor will take it from that folder just as a Microsoft Word doc or a Google Doc, and she will review it, make sure all of it's there. I'm a big fan, by the way, of getting former teachers, or anyone who's has journalism, someone who has a major that's very focused on just writing in general, punctuation, grammar, because I really want them to be sticklers about that. Mm-hmm. And then they'll basically edit it. They'll put it into a folder. And then my VA, the one who's a full timer, she will then take it. She puts it up there. She'll choose the pictures. She'll do all that. But again, it's tough because when she first started, she couldn't do any of this. And I remember there was for people who are intimidated thinking, well, I can't hire a full-time VA. You don't really need to in the beginning. You can do some of this stuff yourself. What I did, this was something that, I worked with her in the beginning for 10 hours a week. And I was like, oh, we're a little bit more busy, 15 hours a week. And then eventually it got to the point where it's like, okay, you know what? I think I can actually keep you busy for 40 hours a week. Because that was my biggest thing is I've got to make sure she's busy. And now because I've got so many properties and everything, I've been able to do that. So she'll usually take it and then she'll format it, make sure all is good, post it up. She's also very good about asking questions, which I absolutely love. So if there's anything that ever comes up that's confusing, she'll ask. And now it's funny because I can just kind of create a website, throw it up, you get a new writer, plug them in, and that's all I need to do. So.
Yeah. No, that's great. It sounds like a good system. So to clarify, is your virtual assistant also like monetizing the articles if they're focused on like Amazon? Is she inserting the Amazon links or buttons, etc.?
Yeah. If I have affiliate stuff going up, which trying to think right now, I don't have too much affiliate content going up. But if I do, yes, she knows how to use SiteStripe and Amazon, pull it all in. She knows all about that. She's been trained on it. And one thing I will say too, I think this will be helpful for people. One thing that I've been really big on with every website that I have, and if someone has one website, this is way easier, but one of the biggest things that I've done is that I've had a page on my website specifically to where it could just be, your website domain / training area or something like that. And what I do is I actually put all the tasks in there. I don't just write down the task like in a Word doc. I'll actually have it written down, but I'll also record a video using Screencast-O-Matic. And I put that at the top because what I found is that, and this is after years and years of outsourcing, some people are good with, just the text, but the video is very, very helpful. I think when you have the two, it's very clear. So it takes me more time to train. It's slower, but I do that. And then the beauty of it is in the future, if my virtual assistant were to leave tomorrow, yes, that would be very painful for me and that would suck. But I do have everything documented in standard operating procedure documents on every one of my websites on one page. So I can always just say, hey, here's, this is where you need to go do your training. And it should answer all the questions. And you just got to remember to always update it. If something comes up and it's like, oh, I got to do this now, just put it in that area. And eventually you'll be very thankful if someone drops on you, which I feel like is inevitable pretty much. So,
yeah, I think that's a great tip, having procedures that, your current staff can look at and rely on. But like you said, if somebody new comes in, it's pretty easy for them to pick up the ball and run with it if they need to as they review those things. So you do things similar to the way that I do things. One difference that I wanted to ask about is I have my authors just write directly in WordPress rather than, putting everything in a Word doc and then, having to move that over to WordPress. Is there a reason that you have the authors write in Google Doc rather than just WordPress?
The only reason is simply that I think that I feel like people are probably more comfortable with Microsoft Word or Google Docs because they've just been doing it for longer. And the thing is too, is that when they're writing into WordPress, and it depends on what you're paying them, right? And what you're comfortable with. For me, I just want the writers to focus on one thing, writing. I don't want them to focus on formatting. I don't want them to focus on, anything else. I want them to focus on writing and just focus on the content 100%. So they do their best there. And then that's why my virtual assistant, and again, I have her for 40 hours a week. So that's where she walks in and, she can take that time to really make sure that the article is looking good. It's formatted correctly. And I would rather she spend her time doing that, than they do. I want them just to write and focus on that one thing and then hand it over to her. So that's why I do it that way. But I think both ways would work. I could totally understand why you would have someone do it directly in WordPress. But for me, it's just been, I want to keep her busy. I want her to focus on things. And she's, like I said, she's really detail oriented. That's the key to that. So she's, if she ever sees anything weird or has any questions, she does. And she's just learned so much, because we've been doing this for so long now. I probably had her for maybe 3 years now. So, she's been so involved in the business for so long that she has a lot of the best practices across all the web properties that she always is doing the same thing. So
awesome. So let's dive a little bit more into strategy now. So we're going to just focus on your largest site, the one that's bringing in the most money. Can you just give us a high level strategy that you followed up to this point?
Yeah, so it was really interesting. So, and I'm not going to necessarily give away the niche or the website, so to speak, but basically what happened was, there was a situation, someone that that's in my family needed some help with something. And I essentially found out that, there were websites out there that were focused on this, right? And there definitely was. But the thing that I realized while I was doing it, or while I was researching to try to help this individual, was that the websites weren't very good, quite frankly. So I kind of looked at it and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot and make it. So I started to make it. When I did it in the beginning, I created something, and it's really like kind of not a directory, but it's something that I call an informational database. Okay, so let me explain.
Right.
So the example that I usually give is like boxing gyms, right? So if you had a website about boxing, okay, it was all about boxing, not just the affiliate stuff, but informational stuff. Maybe you talk about the recent boxing matches, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that you could do, and this is really how I started this website in the beginning, is kind of find a question that can be molded into multiple different queries in the same way. So what I mean by that is, the example I usually give is, let's say that people were looking for the best boxing gyms in, and then city name, whatever that city name is, usually top 25 cities, top 50 cities. What I would do is I would create a page for every single one of those cities. And then I would have a directory. Maybe you have some content, like a paragraph or two about each of them, and get more specific about them. And you actually explain what they are. And then you would then reach out to those places, say, hey, just so you know, I featured you. And then you hope basically for some type of link back. And I've had some success with that to where they will link back, but it's twofold, because the reason why I like that is that you have the geographic indicators, which I still feel like Google tends to like quite a bit. So you have, the city name. I feel like you're much more prone to be shown at the top, on the Google search results when you have that indicator as a page, like on your page title tag. So if you have best boxing gyms in Chicago, best boxing gyms in New York, this example I'm telling you right now, I know it wouldn't work because we've got Yelp that we're competing with. You got Google Maps, there's a lot of different things that are competing there. So it wouldn't really work. But for me, that was basically the main thing, is that I focused on that. And then I would also focus on, query based informational databases. So that would be something like, what gyms in city name have boxing and MMA training? Like that kind of thing, like answering that same question, but for all 50 cities.
Okay.
Like something like that. So it's a different way of doing it, but it really does it in bulk. And it's nice because, and I love websites that I can do this, because I can basically get a template and say, this is the template you follow. This is what you do. The only difference is now you have to do it for this city. So they'll go in, they'll do all the research, they'll finish it, and then we'll publish that. And then it's just another city, another city. So it's always unique content. Someone asked, and I don't remember what his name was on the blog post. They said, well, is this programmatic? It is not programmatic. It is purely unique written content. But for me, that has worked really well. And if you can find the right query-based informational database, like I said, a gym that does boxing and MMA in those different cities, those can do really well. But I'm a big fan too. I should disclose this. I'm a big fan, Spencer, of I love, if there's a query that gets 0 to 50 searches a month, I'm fine with that because I'm making 50 pages.
Right.
So over time, that all adds up. And then you get, I feel like, and this is anecdotal, but I feel like Google gives you that authority in that area, noticing, hey, they're really focused on this stuff, and if you keep doing that sort of thing, eventually it really adds up because there isn't like one page on my website that makes a lot of money. That's not at all how it works. It's every page makes a little bit of money. So
yeah. Okay, I've got a couple of follow-up questions on this informational database topic. So just first, if you were to guess, what % of your traffic coming to your site is coming to those sort of informational database pages that you've created?
On this particular website, I would say probably about 40%. And I have had to do that analysis before, so I can kind of come up with that. Roughly about 40%.
Okay, so that's a huge bulk. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big amount. And again, it's small. It's small for each page, but in aggregate, it really, really does add up. And you got to remember, I don't remember how many pages I have on this website. I can actually look if you want, but I think at this point I have like 6 or 7, maybe 8,000 pages because I do a lot of those informational databases.
Wow.
And I do city pages. I do state pages. I do a lot of geographic modifiers. So on this particular website, it's worked really well. I will say I've done it on other websites and I have had success as well. So I don't think it's isolated to this particular website. It's worked for a lot of different websites. But you have to get creative because, like I said, you can have the geographic informational database where you focus on city and state, but you can also do those like keyword indicator ones, like I said, the boxing with MMA gym, and then do it across all states. That works really well too, but you just have to find the right query. That's not like an easy thing to do across all 50 states. Well, one of the examples I'll use too. If everyone, the OGs here, if you remember, Pat Flynn used to have Security Guard Training HQ, I think was his website or whatever.
Yeah.
He might still have it. He did something very similar. That might even be where I got the idea, to be honest with you, now that I'm thinking about it, because he had all the certifications for every single state. So he had 50 pages with all the certifications to become a security guard in all 50 states. And then a light bulb went off in my head and said, well, Google likes those geographic queries. And this is kind of answering the same thing, but it's for every single state. So that's another example that you could use too.
Yeah. So. Yep, he did. He did that. And as I recall, he had a map that he had created where people could click on the map, click on Arizona, and it would show you the security guard training programs in Arizona or something like that. So do you do something similar in terms of like an overall directory page? Like here's, basically just links or a map or however you organize it to sort of tie in all of your database pages? Like here's the overall database, click on each of these if you want the full page.
Absolutely. So really it's almost like siloing, because you have 50 pages, let's just use the best boxing gym example. You're really trying to rank for one page that would get all the traffic for best boxing gyms, right? Not really possible in this instance, but that would be your ideal situation. So what I do is I have that one page, and then I do have basically, I use a drop down, for the 50 different states in that case. The reason why I use a drop down, I actually know exactly the map you're talking about. I actually used to he had a separate website and I bought one from him, and it was Create a Clickable Map. I remember.
That's right.
The problem with it is that it wasn't really mobile responsive, or as mobile responsive as I thought it should be, I guess you could say. So then I just said, you know what, let's just create a drop down. And that way, you're still getting the link equity too, is getting pushed to all those pages because the links are in the page and it's not on a map and it's not through JavaScript. So I just like that approach of doing it. It's worked for me. So yeah, I'll create one main page and then I'll have like that drop down to all those other pages. Yeah.
Perfect. And so you've got 6,000 to 8,000 pages on your site. Are we talking like 90% plus of those pages are this sort of directory type content?
I think that my blog posts are around 700 to 800 at this point, in that range. But otherwise, yes, everything else, for the most part, is going to be that kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay,
good. That's very cool. I think it's a somewhat unique strategy, at least that doesn't get talked about a lot. I haven't done it really on my sites. It's something I've been aware of, but I just never really applied to my particular niche. At least I thought, but I'm sure if I thought really hard, I could probably come up with some unique ideas. So
like, okay, so example for you, because you've disclosed your website.
Yep.
Right. So you have Own the Yard, which is a great website, by the way. Yeah.
Thank you.
So like, for example, with that one, you could look at, and this is just a random example, but if you had something like the mom and pop hardware stores, right? And you had a directory or database with that, kind of a related example, but something like that could work in that case. I can tell you that I have a student that, and I don't do a ton of consulting anymore, quite frankly, but I do have one that I've been doing for a while, and he's actually done this, and we'll just say it's in the fitness niche, and he's actually had some success with it as well. So it does work. My one caveat to it, and I do mention this in my blog post. So I had one website that I did it on. It worked really well. I had another website I did it on. It worked like almost to where Google probably got alerted well, because what happened was I had all these pages or all these directories on there, and I basically was telling people, hey, if you link to me, then I'll give you premium placement on the page. So I'll just move you up the page.
Yeah.
And I did a ton of that. And that particular website isn't a complete failure, but it didn't go nearly as well as the one before. So like, I think that this kind of thing, especially with link building and all that, it can be used with moderation. I don't think like if you do too much of it, which is absolutely what I think I did myself, it can hurt you. So you just have to be careful. But I like it because you get that traffic, but you also have the ability to get the links. Mm-hmm. So it really does. I mean, I really think it can work, and it's a good strategy, but you do have to be careful with it. You don't want to overdo it. I think anybody that's considering it, it shouldn't be the main part of your whole website. I think it should be a part of your website. I mean, with the website I talked about in the blog post, it was what I started with. And then I basically was blogging at the same time, and that grew it too. And then I was like, oh, I should create another one of these informational databases. And I threw another one in. Right. And so you got to remember, this has been, 5 years now, and I've been working on this, have people working on it always. So, it's really a lot of content has been built in a very, well, I guess kind of short time, but reasonably long time too. I mean, that's a lot of pages, but it's been built over time.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's good. You got my mind thinking as well. I can think of lots of things I could do on Own the Yard. I could do landscaping companies. I could do,
That's a better example. Much better example. Yes, that would be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, all sorts of different contractors, right? That are helping you build whatever in your yard. So, interesting. We'll see if I do anything with that idea.
Well, if you do, that's where and I will say too, like, because people look at my AdSense earnings, they're like, oh, that's crazy. And I will say I have one of those very strange, I think I honestly kind of stumbled on like something that was gold in the beginning, because my earnings per 1,000 visitors, I can't disclose exactly what it is because that's against Google AdSense policies, but it is abnormally high compared to other people. And when people ask me what that is, and I can't give it all away because it would give away the website, but context is very important. So when you have ads on your page, like, okay, let's use the landscaping company for an example, right? Which is a great example for this, actually. It could work really well. So let's say that you have the best landscaping companies in all these different places. Number one, you have to look at, okay, are we competing with Yelp? Are we competing with Google? Which in those, I'm sure you would be.
Right.
But if you have that domain authority, you can pull yourself up to the top there, then you would probably have some pretty good earnings per click from AdSense, for the reason of those ads are most likely going to be landscaping companies, right? And landscaping companies, they're all going to be competing against each other. So you're probably going to get some money there. But then again, if you did like an informational based query, you may not get as much on AdSense. Mm-hmm. So context is really, really important. I think people need to understand that, because AdSense doesn't always pay the best. I've had some niches where it doesn't pay much at all. In this particular niche, in this area, it's paying really well. So.
Yeah. No, that's good clarification. So I do want to jump into your content strategy a little bit more. I mean, we talked about, this whole informational database, but then you've also got 700 or 800 other blog posts that are different type of content. So can you explain the type of keywords and content that you're targeting there? What's working well?
Yeah. For the most part, I'm a very big fan of questions. I just answer questions. I mean, it's it's really that simple. So like what I always go with is I do a strategy. I use who, what, when, where, why, and how. So who, and try to think of how it relates to your niche. What, how it relates to your niche. And if I can that's usually how I find those informational databases, right? Because I'll do what is, the training needed for a security guard and then all of a sudden you get Arizona, all the different states. So you'll stumble on them that way. But Yeah, for the most part, it's just answering questions. It's not, usually my writers, I'll say between 1,000 to 1,500 words, because I know most people will ask that. They usually do.
Yep.
And yeah, I just do that. And I will say it's been really interesting because, and I like all the keyword research tools. I use Ahrefs, and I actually still use Longtail Pro.
Awesome.
Myself. I use both, and then I compare the metrics, and that's a whole different thing. But I will say when I do those, I've had situations like there's one that I rank for now, that's getting it's I think the number 2 page on my whole website, and it didn't have that type of volume across either of those tools. I don't even think it did in Google AdWords. So it was almost like that one just flew under the radar, and now it gets a ton of traffic. So yeah, mostly questions. I mean, I've answered a ton of questions, and then I find ways, and this is really important too, I find ways to tie people back into other areas of the website while answering those questions. I think that's a key thing, just through the internal linking and stuff like that. So.
Okay. Yeah. No, very good. So, I mean, you explained a little bit of your strategy behind how you're coming up with the questions, the who, what, when, where, etc. But is there another place that you're going specifically to find those questions? I mean, I'm just trying to think. Maybe we could use an example to kind of clarify for people.
Yeah. So there's really two. I mean, first is just using the Google autocomplete or auto suggest.
Okay.
But before I usually do that, I'll go to Keyword Shitter, is the one. I love that name, by the way.
Yeah,
I think
they might have.
Yeah, they might have changed the name of it actually, because I think it was like, I don't know, but they might have changed the name of it. I remember I saw recently they're doing some stuff over there, but I like that because you put in that who, what, when, where, why, how. You put in that query with whatever it is that's related to your niche, and it will spit out everything under the sun. And I mean, it'll eat thousands of things. And then you just basically take that, and I'll cross-reference and check it in Ahrefs, and then I'll check it in Longtail Pro, and then I'll combine those.
So if our core idea was landscaping,
okay,
right? What do we do? I mean, do we actually type in a question, or do we just put in landscaping and it'll spit out questions for us?
Yeah. So putting in the idea of, again, using who, what, when, where, why, how. So who are the best landscapers? I would probably stop there and then press search then press search. Because you're going to get a lot of cities, you're going to get a lot of states, but there might be other things that you could never have thought of. It could be who are the best landscapers that are also very good at, I don't know, like cement work or so, like there's random stuff that you could get when you do that. So who, and then what landscapers, I would probably go there. So I keep it really, when I use Keyword Shitter, I keep it really broad. So like what landscapers would be good, because then you just put what landscapers, and then you just search, and you'll get questions there. You might find an informational database opportunity. You find all that information there based on what it spits back at you.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah, that's usually how I do it. And you get, like I said, you'll get thousands and thousands of things back, and then you kind of just sift through and see what has traffic, see what doesn't, and go from there.
That's very cool. Great strategy. SEMrush also has a sort of questions tool. They've got what's called a keyword magic tool that I've recently been playing around with. They have a questions section that's probably don't get as many questions, but you get some good ones there. So yeah. It's another little place people can go. Any other tips for content or keywords? I mean, I think you've laid it out pretty well there, but just anything else related to that?
I'm actually trying to look. I mean, I feel like, my whole thing, because my whole strategy with content and everything, a lot of people shy away from, they're like, well, what's the minimum searches I should get a month?
Right.
And what's this and that? And when you're doing this informational database stuff, you're happy with, 20, because you're not getting 20 one time, you're getting 20 50 times. Or if you're doing cities too, you're getting 20 75 or 100 times. So like I said, my website, and really this is how especially with AdSense, this is how you're making it. I'm not making a bulk on anything. It's just a bunch of little things. And I mean, I don't know my exact average earnings per click. We'll just say it's somewhere between 20 to 30 cents. So that's all I'm really making is that much. But when you just, when you have thousands and thousands of pages and it's all aggregate across multiple websites at this point, that really does add up. So I just tell people, my biggest thing would be, don't be scared of, those low, those low competitive or those lowly searched keywords that don't have a ton of searches. If you're going for informational content, I think when you're doing affiliate content, which I do have an affiliate site, or actually I have a few affiliate sites now. I think that there is a little bit of a different strategy there. And I even on the blog post, I pointed someone to your own website because I said, you should really pay attention to what Spencer's doing, because it's more, if you're really focused on the affiliate model, there's some unique things you have to do with that. Some, kind of a little bit of different strategy, but, and I actually, on a video I just had with someone else that I interviewed, we talked about it, and I was saying, I think anybody will realize if you really want to do well with all this stuff, you should just combine the informational and the affiliate content. I mean, that's when you really start making the money. Is you have those informational pages, you have those affiliate pages, and you can monetize them differently or with similar, components, and then you're making the real money. So.
Yep. Absolutely. And so if people keep following along with Own the Yard, they'll probably notice I'm doing a ton more informational content right now. That's going to be my focus over the next couple of months. I'm getting just tons of informational articles and pages up to kind of balance it out, right? I've got the buying guides, the affiliate content, and then the informational content as well. So let's jump into your link building strategy. You talked about how you've been able to attract a lot of links through some of those informational databases, reaching out to companies or whoever and letting them know that they're kind of listed. That's generated some links. Has that been the main link building strategy for you, or has there been anything else that's worked well for you?
On this particular website, and I've done a lot of weird and strange link building campaigns. I've tried a lot of different things because I have a whole portfolio, Mm-hmm. And what I will say is what works for me may not work for you.
Okay.
Like everybody needs to understand that every niche is different. Every website is different. But for me, with this particular website, the database link building really, in the beginning, that was how I got some of the links that kind of gave it that boost. And then I did a little bit of guest posting as well to kind of complement it. And this was one of those niches that wasn't crazy competitive before. It's more competitive now. So it was kind of, I won't say easy to rise to the top, but I could make a dent pretty quick. Mm-hmm. And really with that particular website, I haven't focused a ton on link building because in the beginning I did a little bit of it here and there. I started to rank organically, especially for those question type of keywords. And those are those are something for people to reference. So a lot of other websites have linked to me organically, because of that. So for this website, it was mostly, I did that. I did guest posting. And then what I also did, this is something that I think might be unique, is I did do some mass outreach, basically telling people, hey, this is a resource that I built for these types of people. And I think that, it would be helpful for them. Pretty much a very generic outreach strategy. But my specific audience, again, I can't give away the niche, but my specific audience needs that help. So a lot of people were willing to look over my website. And this is after it had a lot of content. And it was, pretty reputable and it looked good. Then I was able to do that. And then they just said, oh yeah, this is a good, a good website. We'll include it on this resource page and we'll include it here. And it was really just contacting people and making them aware of it. There was plenty of people that said no to that, but there was enough people that said yes to it because it was a good resource and they're willing to put it somewhere on their website as well. So,
yeah. Okay. No, very good. And I was just trying to look through the post. I thought you had mentioned this, an email outreach strategy with people that were on your email list.
Oh, yes, I did that.
As well,
I did that
right?
too. Yeah. So that was in the beginning. I haven't done that in a while now, but it was a pretty unique way of doing it. So what I had done is I had basically found a way, because I was getting, I think at the time it was like 30 to 50. I remember I looked at the blog post. Whatever I wrote in the blog post is exactly right, but I think it was around 30 to 50 people a day. And they were all signing up for my email list. And that was basically, if anyone's wondering what the email list was, my website is informational, but I kept pointing them back to resources, and I just kept keeping them engaged pretty much. Mm-hmm. That's really what I focused on. And while doing that, what I noticed was there was a lot of organizations that were signing up. And this is the people who aren't at gmail.com or yahoo.com or MSN, all these different generic email providers. So I basically paid someone on Upwork to create a quick macro that I could plug everything into Excel and then press this button. It would scrub it. And then I could see all the people that were at these organizations. And then I would just reach out to those people specifically and say, hey, I saw that you signed up for the email list. You're already familiar with who we are. Really appreciate it. and then basically I would approach them and say, by the way, is there any way that we would be able to be included as a resource on your website or something we could do for that? And that led to, in the beginning, that led to some partnerships as well. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that because I would have totally forgotten.
But
yeah, that was
strategy.
That worked. Yeah, that worked well because it's nice because they already know who you are. You know what I mean? So it's not like you're just a cold. I mean, you are approaching them cold. But I almost feel like, number one, they already know your website and who you are, but they may be like, oh, they kind of find it like cool that you're actually reaching out to them. Like, wow, this is the owner of this website. They're reaching out to me. That's really neat. So, and you could do that with guest posting too. I mean, in theory, if you want to do it that way too, it's the same strategy. So, but yeah, that worked. Thank you for mentioning that. That did work well for me in the beginning. And then I should say I started to get more of those links organically.
Right. So. No, very cool. I think that is a unique strategy. At least I'd never heard of that before. So people that are collecting emails, have an email list, that's something that they can try out and see if it works for their particular situation. And so overall, have you found that with this site and maybe your other sites in general that you have needed to do link building sort of in the beginning? And I don't know what that time frame is, 6 months or a year or whatever. But then after that, now you're just mainly focused on content?
So it's been kind of like that, but it's been really interesting. Like I said, every niche is different and every website's different. So to give you an example, my wife has, and I can give this away, it's a fashion website, mostly focused on fashion and beauty and that sort of stuff. Okay. Totally not my wheelhouse, by the way. I am not into that stuff, but she is. So I was like, okay, well, I don't care about that. I just care about the business end of it. Right. I'm interested in that. So what we did with her, she's actually she's from Brazil originally, and she was kind of Instagram famous and all that in Brazil. She did that whole, Instagram influencer thing, and she has about 850,000 followers on Instagram. So yeah, so with that, an interesting link building strategy that we used there was that we had reached out to all the different fashion bloggers and said, hey, we'll give you a shout out on Instagram if you link to us. So we did that. It worked pretty well. And then her website, I won't say that it stalled, but it's kind of slowed down a little bit. I haven't seen it like continually rising. So we're doing that campaign again. So it kind of depends on the situation. I mean, in this particular website, I did it in the beginning, and then when it kind of slowed down and traffic was kind of not at a trickle, but kind of like stagnant, kind of every day, just consistently the same. I would then look at what it could be doing. And I was like, well, that's just not right. So then I would try to do a little bit more link building. And I usually do my link building as a campaign. So it's kind of a finite thing. I'll say, okay, well, we have, for example, 500 targets. We're going to do this campaign. We're going to run it through. We're going to try our best and see how it goes. And then I'll leave it. And I'll leave it be for, maybe a month or so, a month and a half, look back at the results, see how everything's going. And then I'll run another one. So I kind of do it where with my websites, I'll run one, I'll leave it, I'll let it run, or I'll let it be for about a month, month and a half, and look at results. And then if I think we need another one, I will run it. If it's trending positively and things are going well, what I always call it just like if I have momentum, right? If things are rising, I generally won't even do another link building campaign until momentum stops. If it stops for like a month and a half, then I'm looking at it and saying, okay, well, what else can we do? I mean, I know that the content's always going to help, but is there another link building campaign that we should try here to try to, increase our domain authority? Right. So that's how I've been doing it. Instead of, to backtrack, before I said I had one website where I really focus on link building, and I think that there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. I was getting like 6 to 7 links a day, and these weren't paid for. I mean, it was just a really successful link building campaign, but I think that Google saw that, and I honestly think that they kind of like it would have to tweak, or the algorithm would be like, hey, this is not natural. Right. And I think if they notice that. Yeah. And I think if they notice that. So yeah, I'll usually run them and then let it be and then run it again if I see fit. So.
Okay. No, very cool. I want to jump into monetization strategy just a little bit. You are using Google AdSense. That sounds like that's the bulk of the earnings, and then a little bit of affiliate stuff, whether I don't know if it's just Amazon or maybe something else as well. But anything else that you're using to monetize, at least the main website?
Yeah, so the main website, so this is one of the things that I think is really important too. I tell everyone, especially your top 10 pages, your top 15 pages, treat that page as a business. Like really, really focus on that page. Like one of those, all 15 of those top 15 pages, because you need to really look at those pages with a magnifying glass and say, what are all the ways that I can make this, so it's making revenue, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are all the different ways that I can monetize it? And I think that strategy, those little things that I've done, has really, really paid off. Because, there's one page where it may not make any sense to have like any affiliate links at all. And then, with this website in particular, I seriously think I probably have maybe 10 Amazon affiliate links on the whole website. I don't really do Amazon affiliate with it. I usually do, like, for an example, you talked about, like the lawn care. I'm trying to think of an example that would be relevant here. So you would then look at that particular page, maybe you write something, and then you'll have the Amazon links in there, but maybe it's about the service and you're actually partnering with a local, lawn care company and say, hey, I'll sell you leads. Because I do have a component of this website is actually selling leads to where I basically will point them to that. So, and that's one of my highest traffic pages. So like, I used all different monetization strategies. I used AdSense. I've used media.net. I have some Amazon affiliate in there. I have a lot of partners that I can't fully disclose who they are because it would give away the niche, but I have partners that help. And right now my affiliate/partner income is about half, and AdSense is about half. So it is about a 50-50 split, which I was really trying to get to that point. So I was a little bit more diversified. And one thing I want to say, because I know people are going to ask, they always ask this, why is it that you went with AdSense and not Ezoic or Monumetric or all these other guys?
Right.
So the main reason for that, and I don't think that this is a rule, I honestly think that I'm kind of the exception to this, is that in my specific case with Google AdSense, and I'm actually testing Ezoic on another website right now, but in my case, and I don't know why this is, but for some reason, AdSense just seems to perform a lot better than those other guys do. Like, I actually had reached out to, I think it was Mediavine. I went through the whole, it was AdThrive, and I went through the whole application process and everything. And then they always like check over your website before you go in. They actually came back and told me, you've done a really good job optimizing your site for ad revenue. And they actually said, we don't think it's worth joining us because we don't think that we'll be able to increase it enough.
Interesting.
Which I mean, good on them, right? To be able to say something like that. But, and I'm not saying that I'm like a savant when it comes to the ad stuff or anything, but like, I mean, I've really tested this over years. I use the plugin that I use is Ad Inserter, which is a free plugin. Right. I use that plugin, and I've really tested a lot over the years. I've done a lot of A/B testing, a lot of different things just to test where the ads are, how much they're making, and then I'll do, another test for 14 days, something like that. I've done a lot of that. When you're really focused on something for 5 years, you could do a lot of it. So for me, AdSense has paid the best, and I think context is the key there. Again, the ads that are showing on your website, I think that's the key to the whole thing. So for me, that's worked out really well. But yeah, for those who are going to answer it, or for those who are going to ask, that's why I do it.
And I was going to ask, so thank you for doing that.
Yeah, everyone always asks that.
And that makes sense. Every situation is going to be different. Every website is going to be different. And I mean, when it comes down to it, Mediavine and AdThrive, they're really optimization services. I mean, they're essentially going to be pulling from the same ad inventory that Google AdSense is going to be pulling from. So technically they could get the same ads, but they're really just trying to optimize that. And you've already been working on that for years. 5 years, right? That's probably what AdThrive saw. They're like, we wouldn't do anything different, right? So it's not and I think that there's there's going to be some ad networks out there, and I can't even tell you offhand, but I'm sure there's some ad networks like in some niches that are probably better than Google AdSense could do. Like let's say the pet niche would be an example. Like there's probably, and I don't even know if there is, but there's probably an ad network out there that just focus on pet stuff. So they might be able to get you higher earnings per click, and then it's totally worth it to do that sort of thing. But yeah, for me, that it just straight up, it just didn't. No one could seem to beat Google AdSense, which I think it's the exception and not the rule. So. And you've got a good thing going, right? So
so why
you
mess
don't want to mess
it?
So very good. No, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing everything that is working well with your site. Is there anything else that is working really well for you that we haven't covered, or any just last pieces of advice that you'd like to offer people that are out trying to build websites?
The last piece of advice, I'm going to go over it one more time, is that those top 15 pages, treat them all like a business and really, really look at them with a critical eye to understand how you can monetize them the best that you can. Because some might, an informational product might work. Some affiliate links might work. Some Google AdSense may work. There's so many different things that you can do. Oh, and selling leads may work. There's so many different things that you can do on those pages that you really need to pay attention. I don't think, I think you have to have a critical mass of traffic to even worry about this. Maybe, 25, 50,000 page views a month-ish is when you can really start focusing on that. But I just want to reiterate how important that is, because that's how a lot of the gains that I've had have been made, is just that micro stuff, that little stuff where you're getting, okay, well, now this page gets an extra $10 a day. Well, now you're getting an extra $300 a month, you know? So like that, doing that over and over and over and really looking at that is so, so, so important. And I feel like so many people are focused on the content treadmill and getting content out, and they're just, they're not doing that. They don't do that enough. And then the other thing I'll say too, is that I've had, and I think you're doing this on Niche Pursuits right now, if I remember right, but revising content and eliminating old content and stuff. And I know that you've had success with it. I have had some astounding success with that, by looking at old content and revising it. In fact, right now on this website, the one that I focused on in the blog post, I haven't been publishing new content, for it's probably been about 4 months at this point, because we focused really on revising a lot of the content and the informational database stuff. We've done a lot of that. It's been really focused on revising content, and I'm making more now than I ever have with it. So there's definitely something to it once you have that track record in Google to going back and revising for sure. But otherwise, just, you guys can find me at onehourprofessor.com. I'm always publishing my income report. So if nothing else, come there just to look at those and be nosy and, see how it's going.
Awesome. Thank you, Ron, so much for coming on the podcast. If people want to follow along with you, like you said, they can go to onehourprofessor.com, read those income reports, or get in touch with you. So thank you once again. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Spencer. Have a good one.
Thank you once again for listening to the Niche Pursuits podcast. As a reminder, this episode has been sponsored by Ezoic. Ezoic is a Google award-winning technology that everyone from niche website owners to major brands use to grow and monetize their websites. Ezoic is a Google certified publishing partner. It's a platform that leverages artificial intelligence to help you optimize revenue and monetization on a per visitor basis, and so much more. If you want to check out Ezoic, go to nichepursuits.com/Ezoic. Again, that's nichepursuits.com/Ezoic. Thanks a lot.